trash. We see untapped beauty. Welcome to Verdant Dreams, a space where forgotten objects find second life. In this video, we'll explore bold and practical DIY trash garden ideas that anyone can try, no matter the size of your yard or the tools you have. There are timestamps below. Skip around, explore what speaks to you. And if something sparks a question or an idea, drop it in the comments. I'm listening. If this inspires you, don't just watch. Create it. Live it. And if you'd like to stay close to this journey, you're not just hitting subscribe. You're choosing to believe in the quiet work of someone real, someone who creates not for clicks, but for connection. This isn't just another garden video. It's a part of who we are. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing us. Tucked away in the corner of a tiny English-inspired front yard, a meandering trail of colors invites you to wander. Each stone beneath your feet holds the brushstroke of a quiet afternoon, painted by hand with hues that seem to hum in harmony with the garden's autumn breath. Lavender and mint, coral and sunflower yellow, they rest against a lush carpet of moss and fallen leaves, forming a soft rainbow that gently dances beneath the feet. This is not just a path, but a story stitched with care. Once, these stones were forgotten pieces, leftover slices from construction, rough and dull. But now, reclaimed and renewed, they guide visitors through a sanctuary of chrysanthemums and marigolds blooming proudly in the chill of fall. Each step feels intentional, a reminder that beauty can be made from remnants, that joy can be crafted from what once had no purpose. A rustic wooden bench waits at the end of the pathway, beneath the shade of a crooked apple tree, heavy with fruit. Its branches reach like open arms over a garden that brims with warmth despite the crispness of the air. Tiny bees hover above Japanese anemone blooms, the last dance of the season echoing around them. The magic of the stone slice rainbow pathway is not just in its vibrant paint or playful curves. It's in the way it turns the ordinary into art. It's how it makes a humble stroll feel like stepping through a dream. Even the smallest yards, be it a patio in New Zealand or a suburban front garden in Canada, can host this wonder. With each painted stone, a little piece of sunshine is placed into the earth. Children skip along it with glee. Gardeners pause to admire their handiwork. Neighbors stop at the gate and smile. The path does not lead far, but it brings people close, to nature, to color, to imagination. And that, perhaps, is the most beautiful destination of all. When the wind stirs through the garden, it carries with it a song, a soft tinkling chorus of stone against wood, like laughter from a dream. Along the length of the old wooden fence, dozens of tiny pebbles dance in harmony, each one a small piece of forgotten earth, reborn with a brush of color and purpose. These pebbles once lined the edges of driveways, lay hidden beneath muddy boots, or rested silent beneath trees. But now, they shimmer with fresh coats of pastel paint and intricate little patterns, florals, dots, tiny bees, and even miniature rainbows. Carefully drilled and strung with wire, they hang like nature's own wind chimes, clinking softly as the garden breathes. Behind them, a sea of late bloomers sings its own song. Marigolds glow like flames beneath the morning sun. Asters nod gently with every breeze. Chrysanthemums stand regal, defiant against the creeping chill. It's a celebration of survival, of the quiet transformation from trash to treasure. The pebble charms are more than decoration, they're storytellers. Each one carries the memory of a walk, a riverbed, a child's collection pocketed long ago. And now, hung with care along fences in backyards from Australia to the English countryside, they invite us to slow down. To see the beauty in the small, to hear the music in silence, to smile at the unexpected joy of a painted stone. Visitors often pause at the fence, fingers reaching out to brush the stones. Children play guessing games. This one's a ladybug. That one looks like candy. Neighbors ask how they were made, inspired to create their own trails of joy. It's infectious, this simple charm. And that's the heart of it, accessibility. A handful of pebbles, a few dabs of paint, and suddenly the fence isn't just a divider. It's a gallery, a storybook, a whispering wall of wonder. So let the wind play its tune. Let the stones sing softly of renewal. And let every garden, no matter how small, find a way to speak with color and charm, one painted pebble at a time. There's something deeply poetic about arranging stone by stone, hand by hand, into a design that blooms alongside the flowers it cradles. The mosaic border around this flower bed is more than edging. It's a quiet celebration of harmony between the natural and the crafted, between patience and playfulness. It started with a basket of discarded stones, some river-worn, some leftover from broken tiles, others chipped and tossed aside from old pathways. No two pieces were the same. But under careful fingers and a curious heart, they began to find a place. One by one, painted and positioned with intention, they shaped into a border that now frames the garden like jewelry. Here, sunburst patterns in warm ochre dance beside spirals of seafoam green. Over there, a small bloom of violet stones mirrors the asters above it. In between, tiny gray pebbles fill the gaps, grounding the color with humble elegance. The soil they border is rich and dark, freshly turned, cradling the roots of chrysanthemums and marigolds that glow under the early autumn sun. Each step along the edge reveals new detail, a little twist in the pattern, a painted leaf, a sparkle from embedded glass. Children kneel to trace the outlines with their fingers. Gardeners pause mid-tend to admire their handiwork. Visitors ask, "Did you make this yourself?" And the answer, always with a smile, is yes. This mosaic edging isn't just beautiful. It's durable, weatherproof, sustainable, and most of all, personal. It adapts to tiny yards, to sprawling backyards, to patios where every inch counts. It doesn't demand a perfect match of stones or a flawless technique, only time, a touch of color, and a willingness to see the ordinary with new eyes. In a world that moves fast, the act of making a mosaic is a slow, grounding joy. And once laid, it becomes a silent witness to the garden's life, its blooming, fading, and blooming again. A living frame for nature's canvas. So let the flowers burst. Let the colors sing. And let the stones, once forgotten, take their place in the story, at the garden's edge, where beauty begins. In the quiet of the patio, beyond the last stepping stone and under the curling arms of a vine-covered pergola, there stands a small fountain. Its voice is gentle, a murmuring stream of water tumbling from one stone to the next. But the story it tells runs deeper than the sound it makes. Once discarded, forgotten pieces, chunks of rusted metal, bent piping, cracked stone, now find harmony here. Reborn through the eyes of a dreamer, they form a sculpture of movement and texture. The topmost rock, veined and weathered, releases a stream of water into the open mouth of a shallow clay pot. The water catches the light, flickering like laughter, before tumbling again onto a bed of painted pebbles below. This fountain is not extravagant. It does not roar or gush. It flows like memory, like breath, soft and constant. Around it, pots of marigold sway in the breeze, their orange petals catching afternoon light. Sedum, autumn joy, and purple asters gather close, leaning toward the sound as if to listen. It's in these quiet corners that gardens come alive, not in the grand structures, but in the moments that make you pause. This fountain, crafted from junk and stone, has become the heart of the patio. A place where tea cools slowly in the morning sun. Where pages turn gently in the shade. where birds come not just to drink, but to stay. Children call it the Whispering Rock. Neighbors ask, "Did you buy it?" The answer is always, with pride, "No, we made it." And that answer blooms just as fully as any flower. In the smallest of gardens, in a back alley in Melbourne, a suburban patio in Toronto, or a cozy English courtyard, this fountain can live. It requires no plumbing, no perfection. Just a few pieces of forgotten material, some water, and the desire to turn trash into tranquility. It teaches that beauty doesn't need to shout. That water, rock, and rust can come together in poetry. And in this poetry, the garden breathes. Where the bunnies go. The garden awakens not only with flowers but with a sense of wonder, whispers of playfulness, footsteps of magic. Winding through the blossoms, a trail emerges. Not straight, not stiff, but curved and light, as if something small and joyful had danced its way across the soil. They call it the Bunny Trail. Crafted with flat stones, each one chosen with care, the path leads from the edge of the garden to a quaint little gazebo tucked beneath flowering vines. But these stones are no ordinary walkway. Painted in the soft hues of springtime dreams, blush pinks, mint greens, baby blues, they take the shape of bunny footprints, large and small, playful and precise. Some are marked with tiny white daisies, others with sparkling specks of glitter like morning dew. This isn't just a path, it's a story waiting to unfold. Children skip along it, following the rabbit to its burrow beneath the gazebo. Adults smile at the whimsy, the surprise of it. Even the butterflies seem to follow, weaving between the asters and chrysanthemums that line the trail. Sedum glows with a reddish blush as if blushing at the beauty of it all. The stones once sat forgotten in piles, discarded from landscaping projects or washed up by creek beds. But under gentle hands and a spark of imagination, they became part of something magical. A reminder that a garden needn't be grand to be meaningful. It only needs a path, and a little story to guide it. The gazebo at the end is no longer just a sitting space. It's a destination. A little world at the end of a journey. Tea tastes better there. Conversations linger longer. Every visit begins with a smile brought on by those painted prints. Whether nestled in a corner of a Canadian backyard, or hidden in a coastal Australian front garden, the Bunny Trail invites joy. It's for dreamers, for children, for anyone who still sees the garden as a place of play. And when the last flower fades and the air turns cold, the stones remain, waiting for the next bloom, the next giggle, the next set of small feet to follow the bunnies home. They stand like guardians at the edge of the garden, three slender towers, rising not from stone alone, but from the marriage of rustless scrap and painted intention. Planter pillars, they call them. Born from metal forgotten in storage sheds and stones once scattered underfoot, now brought together into vertical expressions of rebirth and beauty. The bases are sturdy, old metal pipes and cans, sanded and painted with soft hues of terracotta, sage, and muted gold. Around them, stones spiral upward in gentle mosaics, like ivy frozen in time. Some stones were tiny brushstrokes, florals, mandalas, or simply playful dots. Others remain raw, honoring the earth from which they came. But the crown, the crown, that is where life truly sings. Atop each pillar bursts a flourish of flowers. Marigolds flare golden against the crisp fall air. Sedum spills gently over the edge in tones of blush and rust. Japanese anemones dance in the breeze like ballerinas. Together, they lift the eye and the spirit. These pillars do more than hold plants. They elevate the garden. They create rhythm in the space, giving height and structure to what might otherwise be flat. They mark corners, frame views, create surprise. One sits beside a rickety bench, another watches over the mailbox, a third forms the centerpiece of a tiny patio, surrounded by tea-scented breeze. They are reminders that vertical beauty is not reserved for castles. That small spaces, tiny yards, narrow patios, shaded side gardens, can reach for the sky in their own way. And that discarded things, pipes, stones, metal, can become poetry with a little care. Neighbors stop and stare. Children ask to help paint the next one. Birds come to perch. The garden becomes not just a place of flowers, but of conversation, of admiration, of quiet invention. And when autumn deepens and frost begins its whisper, the pillars will stand strong, waiting. They will bear the weight of winter and rise again in spring, still colorful, still proud, still telling their tale. For in every garden, there should be something that lifts, leaves, hopes, or hearts. And these pillars, stitched from stone and steel, do all three. Far from any coast, nestled between rows of autumn asters and golden marigolds, the sea has quietly made a home. Not with waves or tides, but with stones, each one painted, placed, and imagined into a miniature world of ocean magic. Smooth river rocks form the base of this garden seascape. Once scattered near streams and trails, they now wear coats of aqua and sand, coral pink and deep sea blue. Some are painted with white curling waves. Others boast the familiar shapes of starfish, sea urchins, or sailing boats. A trail of bubble-like dots weaves between them, tying the scene together like foam upon a beach. It's playful. It's serene. It's an escape without leaving home. Lavender waves gently in the background, adding its soft scent to the salty illusion. Japanese anemones bloom like jellyfish dancing in the tide. And tucked beneath the ornamental grasses, a tiny driftwood sculpture sits like a shipwreck, waiting to be discovered. This seascape isn't made for perfection, it's made for the soul. Built by hands that dreamt of the ocean, it turns a small front yard or back patio into a coastal memory. It invites you to pause, to breathe slower, to listen for waves even when they're not there. Children build stories in the sand like mulch, imagining pirates and mermaids, seashells and treasures. Adults sit nearby with warm drinks, letting the visual rhythm of the painted stones relax their thoughts. It's a garden feature, yes. But it's also a mood, a mindset, a whisper of adventure. And all of it? Made from what others might throw away. These rocks, once ordinary, now shimmer with imagination. The paint brings life. The placement gives voice. And together, they sing of shores unseen but deeply felt. Whether in a London terrace or an Auckland patio, this seascape garden brings the coastline to your door. No matter how far you are from the waves, you'll find the ocean here, in stone and flower, in color and calm. And when the breeze rustles through the mums, it almost sounds like the sea. In the busiest corners of life, peace often arrives in circles. Here, tucked in the quiet bend of a backyard patio, lies a miniature Zen sanctuary. No walls. No loud declarations. Just gravel, smooth stones, and intention. A spiral begins in the center, drawn in pale sand and circled by hand-picked river stones, each one placed slowly, like a breath made visible. These stones were not bought, but found, collected during walks, gathered from forgotten pots, salvaged from other forgotten DIYs. Now, they hold space for silence. Some remain natural, their grays and tans matching the earth. Others are painted soft shades of ocean mist and morning fog, blending into the harmony. Around the Zen ring, the garden watches. Sedum autumn joy leans toward the sunlight. Chrysanthemums bloom with quiet brilliance, soft yellows, purples, and whites offering their calm. Japanese anemones sway, their petals like whispers in the wind. No color shouts. No line disturbs. This space doesn't ask for tools or effort. It only asks for attention. A few moments to sit. A few stones to rearrange. A few breaths to match the rhythm of the garden. The bamboo fence hums gently in the breeze. A distant wind chime sings once, then returns to stillness. It is not a place for show. It is a place for balance. In small patios across the world, in the inner city gardens of London, the porches of Oregon, the verandas of Auckland, this simple circle brings peace. It fits in corners others overlook. It grows with its maker, changing subtly as stones are moved and new ones added. A living mandala. Visitors pause. They kneel, not out of ritual but out of wonder. They pick up a stone, feel its weight, its cool surface, and place it back slightly different than before. The garden accepts this. It does not demand perfection. It breathes with change. And when the day grows heavy, this spiral of stone waits. Not to solve or fix, but to hold stillness. To ground the spirit in shape and earth and rhythm. This is the quiet artistry of the Zen circle. Simple, profound, eternal. A garden is often judged by what's in it, its blooms, its trees, its colors. But sometimes, its magic starts at the very edge. Here, where soil meets lawn, a ribbon of stones rises from the earth, not entirely, but just enough to catch the eye. Like the tip of an iceberg, they hint at stories buried beneath. Each one, painted in radiant color, marks a threshold, a line between the wild and the tended. They were ordinary stones once. Heavy, gray, scattered across driveways, hiding in forgotten corners of yards. But when touched by color, mint green, coral blush, sunflower gold, they became something else entirely. Not just rocks, but borders of joy. Embedded halfway into the ground, they form a seamless curve around flower beds overflowing with mums and asters. Some edges dance around the trunks of dwarf apple trees. Others frame clusters of marigold that glow even on overcast afternoons. Children call them the candy rocks. Visitors bend down to touch them. Gardeners smile as they walk the line, admiring how the colors bounce against the blooms. Even the bees seem drawn to the warmth they reflect. It's a project as simple as digging a shallow trench and letting your imagination pour out through a brush. But the effect, bold, whimsical, inviting, transforms the entire space. It gives structure to the chaos of growth. It highlights the beauty of what's within. From Toronto townhouses to Brighton backyards, this idea blooms. It fits wherever people wish to mark their space with something more than bricks or borders. Because stones don't need to be cold or colorless. They can be cheerful, grounding, alive. And in the quiet of early evening, when shadows stretch and the sky dims, the painted stones remain, half hidden, half shining, reminding the garden that beauty can rise from beneath, if we choose to uncover it. Beneath the climbing vines of a time-worn pergola, where soft petals fall like whispers onto the earth, lies a path most grown-ups miss, but children always seem to find. It's a winding trail of pebbles, no bigger than a hand, but painted with wonder. Each stone sparkles softly in the morning light, kissed with pastel color and a hint of shimmer. Faint outlines of tiny wings, stars, and flowers invite you to follow. This is the fairy garden path, and it doesn't lead far, but where it leads, hearts soften. Set beneath the shade of climbing roses and trailing ivy, the path feels secret. Moss grows between the pebbles, hugging them like nature's carpet. Japanese anemones bloom quietly nearby, their petals catching dew like fairy footprints. Marigolds sway at the edge, their brightness anchoring the dream. The pebbles weren't purchased, they were gathered. From streams, from roadside trails, from the forgotten corners of yesterday's walk. Brought home, cleaned, and painted by quiet hands who believe that gardens aren't just for growing food or flowers, but for growing wonder. Under this pergola, there is no rush. Only stillness. The soft blink of fairy lights strung between the beams. The distant sound of bees. The gentle curve of a path built not for utility, but for imagination. In small yards and tight corners across the world, from cozy Auckland patios to weathered front yards in Wales, this idea blooms. It's not about space. It's about spirit. About gifting a piece of the garden to something unseen but felt. Neighbors bend low to admire the tiny details. A child's voice might say, "They really live here, don't they?" And you, gardener, dreamer, builder, can only smile and nod. Because maybe they do. And if not, the joy of building their path was magic enough. At night, when the garden rests, the pebbles still gleam faintly under moonlight. And if you listen closely, perhaps you'll hear a giggle in the wind or the flutter of wings just out of sight. The garden holds many secrets. But this path? This one invites you in.